Jesus as a worshiper and servant of God. A biblical and theological reflection. 1. Matthew 4:10. Worship the Lord your God and serve him only. In this verse, Jesus responds to Satan during his temptation in the wilderness. Satan had offered Jesus all the kingdoms of the world if he would bow down and worship him. Jesus rebukes him sharply, quoting Deuteronomy 6:13. This moment is pivotal. It shows Jesus affirming the absolute monotheism of the Hebrew Scriptures. He does not claim divine authority to receive worship himself in this moment, but rather redirects worship to God alone. This is a clear declaration of servanthood and submission. Jesus, though revered in Christian theology as divine, here acts as a devout worshiper of God, resisting temptation and affirming that only God is worthy of worship. Theologically, this verse is often interpreted as Jesus modeling perfect obedience. He is not asserting his own glory but pointing to the Father. This aligns with the broader biblical theme of Jesus as the second Adam, one who resists temptation and remains faithful to God. 2 Luke 6:12. Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. This verse reveals Jesus in solitude, dedicating an entire night to prayer. The act of prayer is, by nature, an act of worship, dependence, and submission. Jesus is not portrayed here as one who commands divine power independently, but as one who seeks guidance and communion with God. Spending the night in prayer suggests deep spiritual discipline and humility. It also precedes a major decision, the choosing of the 12 apostles. This shows that Jesus did not act arbitrarily or independently, but sought divine direction. From a theological standpoint, this verse is often used to highlight Jesus' humanity. Though Christians believe in his divinity, his prayer life reflects his human need for connection with God. It also reinforces the idea that Jesus did not act on his own authority, but in alignment with the will of the Father. 3. John 5:30. By myself I can do nothing. I judge only as I hear, and my judgment is just, for I seek not to please myself, but him who sent me. This verse is one of the clearest declarations of Jesus' servanthood. He explicitly states that he does nothing of his own accord. His authority is derived, not inherent. He listens, obeys, and judges according to what he hears from God. This challenges any notion of Jesus acting independently or asserting personal will. Instead, he is portrayed as a messenger, a servant, and a judge who operates under divine instruction. Theologically, this verse is central to the doctrine of kenosis, the self-emptying of Christ described in Philippians 2:7. Jesus voluntarily limits his divine prerogatives to live in full obedience to God. This is not weakness, but a profound expression of humility and devotion. 4. Matthew 26:39. My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will. This verse comes from the Garden of Gethsemane, just before Jesus' arrest. It is one of the most emotionally charged moments in the Gospels. Jesus is in anguish, facing imminent suffering and death. He prays to God, asking if the cup, a metaphor for suffering, can be taken away. Yet he concludes with total submission, not as I will, but as you will. This is the essence of worship, surrendering one's own desires to the will of God. This verse is often cited to show both Jesus' humanity and his obedience. He experiences fear, pain, and dread, yet chooses to obey. It is a moment of vulnerability and strength, showing that true worship is not just praise, but obedience in the face of suffering. 5 John 17:1-3. Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son may glorify you. This passage is part of Jesus' high priestly prayer. He lifts his eyes to heaven and speaks directly to God. He acknowledges that the time of his sacrifice has come and asks to be glorified, not for personal gain, but so that he may glorify God. This mutual glorification is not about ego, but about fulfilling divine purpose. Jesus sees his mission as a way to bring honor to God. He refers to eternal life as knowing the only true God and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. Here, Jesus identifies himself as sent, a servant, a messenger. He does not claim independent divinity, but a role within God's plan. The prayer is intimate, reverent, and deeply submissive. 6. Acts 3:13. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of our fathers, has glorified his servant Jesus. This verse is spoken by Peter after healing a man at the temple gate. He attributes the miracle not to himself, but to God, who glorified his servant Jesus. Calling Jesus a servant is significant. It echoes the language of Isaiah's suffering servant, a prophetic figure who suffers for the sins of others. Early Christians saw Jesus as the fulfillment of this prophecy. This verse also roots Jesus within Jewish tradition. He is not presented as a rival to God, but as one glorified by God. His power and authority are derived, not self-asserted. Theological summary. Across these verses, a consistent theme emerges. Jesus worships God, prays to him, obeys him, and identifies himself as his servant. This challenges simplistic views of Jesus as solely divine and highlights the complexity of his identity in Christian theology. In his humanity, Jesus models perfect worship and obedience. In his mission, he acts as a messenger and servant. In his prayer life, he seeks communion and guidance. In his suffering, he submits to divine will. These aspects are central to understanding Jesus not just as a figure of reverence, but as one who exemplifies what it means to be truly devoted to God.